I have it. So, Hustlers Anonymous. This segment we want to really talk about um struggles, right? So, what is your struggle of the week, right? Like as a hustler, as an entrepreneur, as someone who is working through anything, like there's gonna be struggles. There's the good, the bad, the ugly, all that. But your struggle of the week, what is something that you've been dealing with? Um, yeah, what's something you've been dealing with that you've been struggling with?
As a hustler, I just feel like one of the biggest struggles is legitimacy. It's like making yourself legit in your industry, your craft, your business, and how far of an extent you're going to take that to. Because I think that people don't understand that there's a difference between a hustle and a business, a hustle and a career. And mind you, they can be synonymous, but they're not. They're all the time. They're not necessarily synonymous. They're not necessarily the same thing. And I think it's like a level of steps, like an action plan that you sort of have to take to even make your hustle legitimate, whatever that is. And I think that's the struggle that we all kind of have, like just balancing that, you know, what am I going to do to make myself legitimate in this lane, in this area? So that's been something that I've been um not necessarily struggling with. It's been a challenge, but I've been like really navigating the waters with that over the last few years. And I just think it's all about transitions. Like I want to say I didn't start writing books till 2 years ago. So that was even a transition for me, coming from journalism, coming from working in a marketing space to even publishing my first book. And now I have 12. Pursuing my MFA in creative writing right now because I wanted to legitimize my writing career. I didn't just want to be an author who wrote a book or several books. Like I really want to know the business of publishing. And I feel like, just going to school for it, it's not the only way that you can, learn it. But I think that it says something about that commitment when it comes to getting that credential. So that's been a struggle too. I mean, I also just made the decision that I'm going to go get my MBA in marketing because I do work in marketing full time. And that's just been something too. It's like, the program is a year and I just decided that I'm just going to go and do it because it's actually less than a year, and I just feel like it's going to just help me in my career of marketing anything that I'm doing and just being more knowledgeable. So I feel like it's that balance. It's like, do you want to give your all and just focus 100% on your entrepreneurship? And I think that a lot of things go into that decision making. Like, do you want to be a struggling or starving artist until you pop? Can you do that? Like, I think that that's a question that everybody have to ask themselves. And I remember it's this interview that Nicki Minaj did, and she said that, she was worried before she like decided to take rapping 100% serious. She was constantly working at different fast food restaurants, getting fired left and right, and she made a decision to herself. She said, "I'm gonna give this rap thing my all one time. Like I'm not gonna do nothing else. Like I'm not gonna work. I'm gonna give this my all this one time." And if it don't work, fuck it. I'm gonna just go do something else or whatever. But she decided that that's like she wanted it that bad. That's what she was gonna do. And whatever circumstances, I don't know what her personal living situation was. I don't know what but whatever, she made a decision that that's what she wanted to do. I think that when it comes to legitimizing yourself, you have to ask yourself like, can you can you be a struggling artist or hustler until you go legit? Can you do that?
Yeah.
And for me, I can't be a struggling artist. Like I like my lifestyle. Like I like to get my nails done. I like to get my hair done. I like to have money in my savings. I like to travel. I like to meet people at work. I like to. So I think that that's a struggle right there, just that mindset, because it's times where, you know, I'm I want to write, but I have to work, or it's times where I have to work, but I mean, or it's times where I'm writing, but I'm thinking about work. So it's just that split. So that's what I've been struggling with recently, honestly.
I mean, to kind of piggyback on that. So I've been doing the magazine 20 years. And it's looked different, like there are moments when I am all in and I can't afford to go all in, right? There's been
Right.
moments where I've gone all in and it hasn't worked out, and I think that's why I think these conversations are so necessary for entrepreneurs and with entrepreneurship. I posted something the other day, talking about the rejections I've gotten in just the last week, right? And
Mm.
I posted that to my personal social media, and like I've already gotten a lot of comments, a lot of people messaging me because we always are posting about our wins, right? Like, and the wins are wonderful, right? But you can go months between wins, right? And there's so many things that are happening between that where it's rejections, it's losses, it's one thing after the other. And it's like, yeah, I'm trying, so that, I'm going all in. Like, yeah, it's always a gamble, right? Like, I can go all in. That doesn't mean it's going to work, right? Like, I one of the first things I did, and this was 2000, it's a long time ago. We got an office. Me and one of my friends who wasn't in media, but he wanted to help support, and he had his own thing going on. So we did the office together. So we were both going all in on something. This is shortly after I graduated from college. And I didn't go to college for media, which is, that's another conversation for another episode. I think it's interesting that you're going to get your MBA and just how focused you are on things aligning, right? It doesn't always work like that. But nonetheless, like we both went all in and we said we were gonna do this. But for whatever reason, like his part of going all in wasn't working, which impacted me, right? Like if you can't make your half of the rent, we ain't got an office, right? Like how long before this is gonna shut down? And now
Right.
we behind and so on and so forth. So that was one of my first like big failures, like having to like pack up
Mm.
that office and keep pushing and having to go get back into the workforce. Like I've done the magazine and always had a job. Right. That's a lot of things. Even some industry folks didn't know or don't know. Like I've always worked in education, kind of on and off. These last 3 years, I haven't worked in education since 2021. These last 3 years are probably the longest straight that I haven't had another job. And it's been working, but I'm at that point now where it's like, shit's not lining up the way it's supposed to. Right. And that's just because, like I said, things change. Media is changing by the minute,
Mhm.
right? Like all these big companies are shutting down. There's a reason, or laying the entire teams off or entire divisions off. It's a reason. AI wasn't a thing like it is now, even a year
It
ago.
is.
You know what I'm
No, that's so
saying?
true.
So we're dealing with AI, we're dealing with algorithm changes on social media, we're dealing with, Google making changes. Even this TikTok ban could potentially influence entire industries and careers. So your hustle of the moment isn't always the long-term hustle, right? Like you got to figure out how to, like you said, it's legitimizing it, legitimizing it, but also figuring out what your backup plans are and can you pivot? What your pivot game looks like.
Mhm.
Thankfully, I do have 2 degrees. So if media's having a bad day, man, I can get this MBA money, right? Like I have an MBA. I have tw basically 20 years experience working in education. So I have that, but as a hustler, as an entrepreneur, a lot of times you're wondering or you're thinking like you're a failure or you're assessing, am I a failure because I'm not full time with the hustle, right?
Right.
Or, you know, that's just, it's such a challenge because that career, your hustle being your career is great when it's working. Right.
Right.
But a lot of times that can, if it's not working in the moment, it can hurt you to the point where now it's a setback. That same hustle is your setback. And how do you navigate past that or, work around it? It
Yes.
becomes, it's challenges upon challenges. And this is what entrepreneurs deal with on the daily. It's
Definitely.
that keep us up at night, but it's not necessarily things that, regular folks understand, right? Because if you just go to your job and you come home, check clears every other week, like there's nothing to think about, right? Like this is what
Mhm.
I'm doing. That's it. When you are trying to figure out how to how to make this hustle carry your lifestyle.
Mhm.
It it's a whole different dynamic and game changer. And it's,
Right. It is. And I think, it's like when you say like assessing whether or not you are a failure or not, I just think that's a personal thing. And I think that sometimes it's really about to properly assess that you have to look at like what your ultimate like goal is. And I was thinking about this like recently, and I'm like, I'm currently living some of the prayers that I actually prayed for. And one of the main things that I have been praying for these last few years was, please give me a job that's going to pay me well, that I'm going to enjoy, and that will give me enough time and flexibility to still write. And I got that. And I think that that time freedom, even within my industry of marketing and how flexible my schedule is and how my workload is so low and how I'm just efficient at being able to do my job and also still have time to do my writing and stuff. I think that to me that's a win. And I think it's all about how you like look at things, because time is the most important thing to me right now. It's really not just money, it is about time, because you can make all the money in the world but you could not have the time to even enjoy it.
but
And I think that it's about what's important to you. So for me, that's what's important for me right now. And the last thing I wanted to add was when you talked about media changing or the landscape of your hustle or industry it changing. So it's so true. And same thing as you. I didn't study, like, my first degree is pretty much in legal communications. I didn't study journalism, which everyone, because I started as a journalist, everyone expects me to be a journalist. So I was like, why? That was what people expected of me, for me to be a journalist. And I remember being a freshman at Howard University and just like figuring out, am I going to study journalism? I knew I was doing communications, but am I going to do journalism or am I going to do TV production? I originally started out as a TV production major and then I changed it to legal communications. And my whole mindset was like, I want to be employable. Like, that was my whole mindset. Like, I definitely want to be employable. And I had a fellowship. This is a good story to tell. In 2015, this is really my last stint at journalism. I had a fellowship with the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism, and there were about 15 of us. It was like a diversity and inclusion fellowship. And there was like 15 of us, and 5 of us were placed at this entertainment publication called InStars. And I had 2 jobs. Of all the 5 of us, I had 2 jobs. So I was doing the social media marketing and I was still a reporter. And I remember I published the most articles out of all 5 of us within a week. And my editor, she reached out, excuse me, the program director reached out to the editor. And mind you, this is a lifestyle publication. So I was writing stories like, remember the Rachel Dolezal thing with like
yeah, yeah,
Whoopi Goldberg? I was writing about that. I wrote a story, lifestyle content, right? And that's exactly what they wanted. It's an entertainment lifestyle space, and they didn't really have a lifestyle writer. And I remember the program director reaching out to her because they just wanted to undermine my work about like, well, this is not like real journalism, but this is the publication that you placed me at, and this is the publication that wants, and this is the kind of work that they want. So, the editor did wind up defending me. And it was then and right there. I also had a situation with one of the program directors who was a journalist. And um, it was an interesting situation where I was face to face with identity politics again as a Black woman, unapologetic Black woman that I faced there. And these were Black women that I was dealing with, Hispanic and Black women that I was dealing with. Long story short, I'm happy I didn't go the route of journalism because, like you said, it is changing. It is changing. Anyone is a journalist now. Journalists are expected to be videographers. They're expected to be social media specialists. They're expected to do so much work, and on top of that, they are not getting paid after these stories are printed. Like, you're not getting paid every month someone reads that story. You're not making, like, you're not like, the
yeah.
publication is making money based on the advertisers that is advertising on that platform. So I'm saying all this to say that even though, I'm not the journalist that some people may have wanted me to be, I'm very happy in the way things turned out to be, because I feel like the route I went is the pivot plan. It was the pivot plan for me. It was like, okay, so what are we gonna do now? So, marketing, digital marketing is not going anywhere. It's only gonna get bigger and better with AI. And now it's about what software are you learning and things like that. So if I just would have stayed, and this is the last point, I think that as a creative, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a creative, writer, or whoever, it's also important to balance that creativity with some technical skills. Like, it's very important to balance that, because that's what's going to make you employable and be able to pay those bills while you're waiting on royalty checks, or you're waiting on this. So yeah, I would just say legitimize yourself, learn some technical skills, even while being a creative.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Like,
Mhm.
even from like the media side and like, being a founder and a publisher, like there's so much that goes into content. There's so much that goes into getting ads. There's so much that goes into just running a business like this day to day. And
Right.
the landscape is changing so much, like, it does make it hard to pay a team of writers. It makes it hard to not demand or ask of your writers that they are also social media people, or they're also, because the content still got to be promoted, right? Like the content is useless if nobody views it. And, we talked about it before.
Absolutely.
Is it a hit if nobody is paying attention to it? It's not, right? Like it's great that you put it out, but nobody knows you put it out. It's still trash. So it is the continuous struggle of being an entrepreneur. It's the continuous struggle of the hustler, and we'll continue to talk about it here at Hustlers Anonymous. And please share your struggles. Please share, how your industry is being impacted, because
Right. And changing.
right, because those are the conversations we have to continue to have, just so that we're open about it. I think that's the other thing. Like, if we don't speak about it, a lot of time these things are happening to us as individuals, especially as minorities, right? Like, we don't realize the amount of struggle we're dealing with because no one else is speaking about it. So let's just do a better job of communicating those things so that we do know, so that for future hustlers and future people that are getting into business, they know what to deal with, what to expect. They know they need to go get some technical skills. They know sometimes that degree is more important than your hustles, having that long-term plan, because you can't think about what's getting you money today. It's what's gonna get you money 5 years from now, 10 years, 15, you know.
Amen. And
So
speaking of that, that's one of the main reasons why I pivoted into writing novels, just because as an author, you make royalties monthly. So that means as long as I have some type of marketing behind these books, I can eat off a book for life. Like right now, I'm still making pretty good royalties off a book I dropped, or well, a series I dropped 3 years ago. So, it's just, and that's another thing, a part of that long term plan, because as you get older and you think about retirement and stuff, people who have a pension and, who know, I don't know what's going to go on with Social Security, who knows? But listen, if you can make $300, $400 a month for a book that you wrote 20, 30 years ago, that you ain't really even promoting like that, you don't know how that's going to come in handy down the line.
yeah,
Same thing, I guess, with these actors and people in the film industry when it comes to like residuals and why, they want, even with the writers, like the writer strike and things like that. So I think it's important to research your industry. Like, it's important to research like long term, like what that looks like. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So.